Everybody, Paul Tarantino.
Thanks, guys. So without any further ado, Robert, if you come on up, Robert Breedlove, no introduction needed. I'm sure you're all aware of his work. Monika Bravo and Wesley Schlemmer. So while I pull out my questions, maybe we'll start with you, Robert. Give a little bit of your background and tell the audience who they are, or who you are, if they don't already know, but I doubt that's the fact.
My name is Robert Breedlove. I'm the host of the What is Money show. We started podcast November 2020, and the mission has really been to just orange pill the world, basically, by getting people to ask the question, what is money? Background is accounting and finance. I used to run a hedge fund, lifelong nerd.
Monika?
Okay. Hello? Okay. Hi. So my name is Monika Bravo. I am from South America, Bogota, Colombia, but I moved to the United States in 1994, 30 years ago. I escaped the Matrix, New York City, 4 years ago, and I live in Miami Beach. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I devote my work into public art. It's a service that I like to do because I don't really connect to the people other than the community at first, and then I let my work be. And also I'm what is called a polymath. I study many subjects, and that's what led me to Bitcoin at one point. I was very disillusioned from the art world and the way the whole art market works. So I started reading you in Medium with the whole time thing, because my work is about time. So that's how I got it. And then I was like curious about Bitcoin. And then I went really deep the rabbit hole in 2020. Thank God, pandemic. I'm studying with the Saifuddin, the Austrian economics whole thing. I asked too many questions. I've learned a lot. And I am deeply, deeply in love with praxeology and human action. So.
Wesley.
Yeah, well, my name is Wesley Schlemmer. I am the president and co-founder of the BitcoinBay Foundation. We are the first and currently only meetup turned nonprofit in the United States, and I love to see the meetups that are here, like Prem and with Bitcoin Brunch and others across the country are starting to look into this as well. Incorporating into the structure. I am a recovering biotech employee. My background is chemical and biological engineering, so I kind of broke out of the matrix through my work in biotech research, and I didn't realize that I was being groomed to facilitate this beast system. And I'm like, well, I can't do anything about this other than take my labor away. So that's where Bitcoin kind of came in as a Bitcoin came in like as an actual alternative. That this is it's nonviolent. It's something that actually can perpetuate what the things we want to see as opposed to destroy the things that we do. So that's the shortest way I can say I got here.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, guys and girls. So when it comes to contemplating Bitcoin philosophy, a lot of it is driven around, at least in my mind, caring for other Bitcoiners, right? Explaining this thing at a deeper level to deliver some value to help form a culture. So Wesley, we'll start with you. Why are you here? What's your driving motivation, and why should people care?
Well, I'm here today because the team of John, Michael, Drew, and Jack Fife put on a great event at Bitcoinday Naples, and they had the Naples Bitcoin chapter down there, and I met them and through this stuff with BitcoinBay. The why am I here? I have no freaking idea. By the grace of God, really. I quit my job during COVID, and I lived in Boston. I moved back home. Moved in with my parents, just wait for the world to finish collapsing. And then when that didn't happen, I was like, okay, I guess I need to actually do something. So fell into the mining rabbit hole, met a guy on Telegram that was local to Tampa. He brought me to the Bit Devs. I met Ben, our Lightning dev, and another guy there. We became best friends overnight, started BitcoinBay a year ago, pretty much today. We incorporated as a nonprofit, and now this is my full-time job. Excellent. So I don't know why I am here, but I'm having fun doing it, and I think everyone else is too. So I keep doing it.
All right. Robert, what's your why with Bitcoin?
Well, I think the question why is a really good one, actually, and it goes direct to the heart of praxeology, which you just mentioned, because man must act, right? We must take action, and to act is to employ means in the pursuit of ends. So, why am I here today? I think this platform, this literal platform, and this figurative platform is a way to amplify the message of human freedom, which is what I try to do on my show every day. I think it's reducible to life, liberty, and property. It's a very simple ethical code that we can all live by. It's been known about for centuries, yet we still struggle to implement it into our day-to-day lived experience. Yet I think Bitcoin offers, and it energizes this adoption of ethics, which is very interesting. I don't think we've ever had a system of economic incentives that encourages us to adopt a particular ethical stance. And that's fascinating to me, right? We've always had the rule of law as kind of the proverbial stick to keep us from doing wrong, to try to keep us in line. But we needed a good proverbial carrot. And I think that's what Bitcoin is. And I'm really excited for its potential to transform human action at scale forever.
I want to dig into that a little bit. So, what is it, do you think, about Bitcoin, this sort of ongoing time chain that's rational, trustless, repetitive, and it's sort of a rule set that allows ethics to evolve on top of it? Like, how do we go from this sort of technology to start even contemplating philosophy and ethics?
It's all a game. Language is a game. We're playing right now. English is an open source software, right? I'm signaling to you my intentions, my thoughts. You're decrypting the words because you're running the same software. We're all playing games all the time with one another. It's all we do. It shouldn't really have a negative connotation. I think it's play that allows us to kind of bootstrap these social institutions and abstractions and all these things that we use and that define us as human beings. The problem has been the power to make the rules is so incredible, right? If you can make the rules, well, then you can win whatever game you're making the rules for forever. You can win the game in perpetuity. And so we've been struggling as a species to establish a firm set of rules that are unbreakable, unshakable, inviolable. And we've come a long ways. Like we should, for a bunch of apes that walk on two legs, we've come a long way. But I think we needed something like Bitcoin. We needed to throw the ring of power into Mordor, like if that is the metaphor for the money printer, which we use to break the rules, twist the rules, etc. That power needed to be extinguished, I think, once and for all. And I think that's what Satoshi has done. He's given us a permanent level playing field on which humans can build a sustainable civilization and a true civilization, not one based on political coercion and warfare, but just on ethical principles.
Great. Monika, I know you and I have had some discussions about the why and the way you look at this sort of evolution from the protocol to philosophy. Maybe you can tell us your why and maybe tie that into the same question.
Okay, good. So when you're in New York and you're an artist, you're supposed to write about what you do, which is kind of interesting because for me, art is something that is more related to emotions, how people feel things, how people feel music or theater, something like that. So that was the very beginning when I started thinking, like, why do I have to do all this, like, pitching to other people? So my artist statement for a long time said many things. But when I moved here and I started really rethinking my life and what I was doing, I left the matrix. So I had the opportunity to see what was the whole programming that I had when I was in New York. I moved there in '94 when the PC was really at the height, which is political correctness. And I was buying my first computer with email and everything. So I got indoctrinated in a field that I didn't even know that now that I'm studying is more socialist and capitalist, and actors and artists have become tools for the system. So I didn't know I was trapped. So coming here and giving myself time to study and understand my reality led me into thinking what was important for me. So one of the most important things for me is evolution, and it's the evolution of my soul. So I'm here to evolve. And what does that mean? It means that I need to be conscious about what is unconscious. I need to be a person that is responding to things and instead of being reactive. So I've been dealing with, not dealing, but in a way, studying psychology for a long time. My father died when I was 8. He went to buy a pack of cigarettes and he never came back. His bookshelves had Nietzsche, Carl Jung, Schopenhauer. So I was reading his books so I could get close to him. And lo and behold, I just found myself looking for him. So that gave me like an expansion that if I want to expand my knowledge, I have to leave what makes me feel comfortable. And I didn't know how comfortable I was in New York until I left. I felt like a phony the last 5-6 years because I had to play a game. I knew it was becoming very complicated because my middlemen, like the galleries, they were always saying to me, "You're asking too many questions," because I always wanted to know where the money was going and how come they were not paying me my part. And I always been very interested in money, but more like the value. And so that's why I'm so attracted also to human action, is because it has given me the opportunity to understand that the value that I give in my life, my time is the most valuable thing that I have. And if I do not connect to that on a day-to-day with everything I do and everything I eat and how I even meditate or not meditate and become and respond, then I'm not making sense. So that's what Bitcoin has given me the opportunity to synthesize all the disciplines that I'm so interested in. So for me, Bitcoin is a state of consciousness. And it's a state of mind that everybody's going to arrive to at wherever stage they are. I'm not here to make people say that you should do this and that because, please, I don't like followers. I'm not a guru. I hate all that. I'm just here to inspire people to be authentic.
So you just shared a little bit. And I think this is important for all of us, right? We all have some sort of life experience, like Monika just shared her life experience. And there's usually some trigger in us from a life experience that immediately attracts us to Bitcoin. I know for me what that was. I'm hoping you all do as well. Maybe Robert, if you could maybe tell us a little bit about maybe your life experience and what was it that maybe triggered you to identify Bitcoin as a solution or something that you needed to bring into your life?
So many things.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where to start. I'll put together just a string of things that I think contributed, but one was I grew up basically. So that gave me an appreciation for money to start. I started playing an online video game when I was in my early teens called Diablo 2, and I watched this item in the game called the Stone of Jordan ring become money in the game. It wasn't the game designer's intention, but the economy just self-organized and made this thing a currency. And I participated in the game and became rich inside of the game, buying low, selling high, and sort of learned economics, unconsciously in a way. And then eventually people started selling those items for real money on eBay. And at that point, my mind was blown. I'm like, okay, something is weird here. This computer digital network land is now connected to real land, and money is some strange thing between the two. And so I kind of got focused on that. My father was an accountant, so I went to school and studied accounting and finance. And reading The Creature from Jekyll Island in my early 20s was probably the last straw for me. I mean, that just gave me the glimpse into the abyss that is central banking and fiat currency. This was pre-Bitcoin though, so I kind of took that bitter pill and then kind of put it on a shelf because I didn't know what to do about it. Had no idea. And then fast forward roughly 10 years, I discovered Bitcoin thanks to the book, The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. I realized, oh shit, this is the answer to the problem that G. Edward Griffin had identified in The Creature from Jekyll Island. And the rest is history.
Great. Wesley, can you take us back to that point in time where you've discovered Bitcoin and it answered questions or solved problems for you?
Yeah, so it didn't immediately I wasn't like, oh wow, this is gonna change the world, but I was just like investing in college. So I on Coinbase, I think you could get like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bcash. And it was like right after the fork, and I was like pissed I missed my airdrop. I was like, come on, I could have gotten free money from this. It's like, well, what the heck? So for that just kind of like went on for a couple of years, but it was the Canadian trucker protest in Canada, obviously. But when their GoFundMe's were getting shut down, GiveSendGo was getting shut down, bank accounts getting frozen, the only money that got to them was Bitcoin. Like it wasn't Ethereum, it wasn't Litecoin, it wasn't Doge, it was Bitcoin. Whether or not that was handled perfectly is a whole other panel. You can do a postmortem on that. But that was when I realized that they will shut down your bank account for not agreeing with them. And then the backdrop of COVID of people losing their jobs for not complying with a standard that's different here than it is 2 miles away. People are losing their jobs. People's getting their bank account frozen. That was when I realized this isn't a game anymore. Because I was trading coins because I was shut down and nothing else to do. So I was like, I'm like, this isn't a game anymore. Like that moment was probably Satoshi's like Wikipedia moment. It was like, oh crap. I'm like, this is not a game. This is actually WikiLeaks. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Rest in peace, Wikipedia. But this value is being transferred across the globe to these people in this area in order to go against a state. And that was like, all right, this is not a peaceful environment. If it ever was. That was when I realized I'm like, okay, this isn't a game. Because in a free market and there's peace and all that, yes, you're going to have all the crypto projects and everyone's going to be doing things, but this is a hostile financial war that we're in. And it's not going to be a vibrant jungle. It's going to be more like a desert with an oasis. And so it was the Canadian truckers protest for me that really shook me and was like, okay, this is it. I dumped everything into it and moved on.
All right. So I love that you described it as a war. It is a war. So, we oftentimes we think about the dollar being weaponized against other countries, right? And it's obviously it is, but it's also weaponized against us, right? Inflation is a weapon against humanity prospering. Censorship is a weapon. Shutting down a transaction is a weapon. So when you think of Bitcoin from the perspective as a weapon to fight this war or as a defense mechanism, and, this is what Jason Lowry talks about a lot, and I know it raises a lot of, or gets people heated sometimes, right? To think of this in terms of a weapon. But when we think of it in terms of our Second Amendment, and the founders of our country developed this Second Amendment as a way to defend our property, defend our freedom, our rights. And is Bitcoin a new tool? Monika, I'm going to start with you. Is it the new tool? Is it the new Second Amendment? Is it the new war? Is it the gun to our financial freedom?
Well, it's interesting to understand the whole concept of war, and the idea of freedom for me is very important. Since I'm very little, I've always been a feisty little shit, so I always want to be free and made every single decision in my life. So I am free and I'm still free, so that's why I love Bitcoin. But the most important thing is understanding the ecology of Bitcoin is where I think that I plug in so well. Because if you understand the ecology, you understand that you have to take care of it. You have to take care of, nurture it. And for me, protecting my body, protecting my mind is all about my own immune system. So I have to really have a very deep relationship to my ecology, and that's going to bring some ecology to the system of what Bitcoin is. So I am not expecting Bitcoin to be something out there that is going to do things for me. I think that's very fiat, to think that things are done for you, that you're waiting for things to happen. You make your life happen because you wake up in the morning and you pray or you meditate or you go out for a run or you stay in bed, you do nothing. Those choices for me are very important. So the idea of Bitcoin being a weapon, I would say it's more like a tool. It can be used. And all this system right now is being used against that because there's one thing, there is ignorance. So when you study money, that's why I love your show, because when you study money, you understand everything. And that book of the creature of like it just blew my mind. Like I'm right now in like the biggest conspiracy theorist because the biggest. I'm like totally teen. How does it like the teen hat? Whatever. I don't care. Because actually, if people understood the meaning of ignorance means it's not a pejorative thing. It's like you don't know. If you don't know something, what do? In my case, I raise my hand and I ask. I'm the most annoying student. I ask so many questions that sometimes they go, can we just wait until the end? And I go, no, I have the question now. So I think that we have the possibility to inquire. And when you understand the inquire can go in, but it can also go out, that's a very powerful tool.
Great. Robert, I know you've had a number of conversations with Jason. How are you looking at this from the position of defense and weapon?
So one of the things that Bitcoin made me appreciate, at least, is language itself, right? Language is very important to be precise with our words, but you also, so we could say like it's indispensable to us, really being human. It's almost defining of what makes us human. One of the things. The other thing being sophisticated tool use in general. Like language is one of the most sophisticated tools that we make use of. This is what separates us from animals. Yet as indispensable as it is also sort of insufficient for mapping the complexities of human action. Human action is much more complex than words can describe. And so Carl Jung has this phrase. He says something like, until you make the unconscious conscious, then it will continue to direct your life and you will call it fate. And so I think Bitcoin has motivated or maybe even enabled us to make the unconscious reality of incentives conscious, right? Like we've been sold a lot of stories across history about why we've gone to war. We've been sold stories in the US. I mean, I remember being in elementary school and they told me this whole tale about how the Civil War was about ending slavery. And that's not what it was about. It's not what it was about at all. It was about the North maintaining the tax base of the South. The South had 1/3 the population. They were paying 3/4 of the taxes. Abraham Lincoln wanted to keep the tax base. He wanted to keep the revenue coming in. This was the motivation for the South wanting to secede, and this was the motivation for the North wanting to go to war. As we've seen over the past 4 years, right, that how quickly history can be distorted, censored, manipulated. The narrative gets twisted and changed to serve particular agendas. Just imagine how much the narrative has been twisted and manipulated looking backward, right? If they can do it right in front of our face, how much has it happened hundreds of years in retrospect? So war, I think at the end of the day is like, look, we are social animals. Social animals are territorial. Territoriality comes with conflict, basically. We fight for stuff and land, resources, etc. That has been the motivation for all warfare, pure and simple. There has never been a moral war. There's never been a justified war. Human violence is immoral in and of itself. Like, unless you are defending someone's act of aggression in a moment against you, in that moment, then it is immoral, right? Uninitiated violence is immoral by basically any moral code globally. War has been motivated by territorial expansion, the incentive of territorial expansion, the incentive of violating other people's property rights to take their stuff. And so Bitcoin, hopefully, is a step toward the abolition of war, right? Giving people a form of private property that they can hold that is inseparable from them, inviolable private property, this ancient notion that was written about in 1215 Magna Carta, right? Life, liberty, inviolable property. We never had the implementation of that. So now that people can store their purchasing power in a medium that no one can steal, and look, devil's in the details here, right? You have to take a lot of responsibility in terms of custody. It needs to be in a multi-sig. You need to have a lot of preparation in place for that phrase to be true. It just doesn't mean you buy Bitcoin on fucking Coinbase and you're theft proof. Like, It couldn't be further from the truth, actually, if you're sitting there on Coinbase. So to the degree that Bitcoin does offer this assurance of theft-proof purchasing power, then I think it can simultaneously defund the war machine and disincentivize future armed conflict, criminality, violence, because there's no carrot at the end of that stick anymore. There's nothing to take, right? If you just hold physical gold, you can come in and kill me and take my physical gold. But if my Bitcoin's in a multi-sig, you can't take it from me. So what's the motivation for assailing a target? Right? We're talking about reducing the financial motivations and the funding mechanism of warfare itself, which is inflation. So you're kind of attacking warfare from both ends. And I hope that we can then shift our natural competitive energies as social animals into the peaceful competitive domain of economics.
So that reminds me of, so what you just said reminds me of a lot of memes, right? They were just coming to my head over and over again, right? Not your keys, not your coins. And now we have the ETF. Nobody has keys. So I wanted to maybe touch on this, and Wesley, maybe you can start with this. You know, there's a lot of people coming into the space today that feel like, oh, I've got Bitcoin. I mean, I hear it all the time. Oh yeah, I have Bitcoin. I bought the ETF. And I said, you have price exposure. That's all you have. How do we, because you're in the education space, you're meeting with people face to face every day. How do you impart this sort of knowledge of what real Bitcoin is, how different of an experience that is compared to just having price exposure? How do you communicate the value?
Very slowly and over time and with much difficulty. Because it's a mind.
Sounds like Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yes. Especially if you mine. But it's such a change in mindset that's required. So when people come to me and they say, well, I want Bitcoin, I want this, I want that, I want that. I'm like, why? It's just like we started this conversation. Why do you want this? What do you want? Do you want more dollars? Do you want to protect your purchasing power? Do you want to hand down things to your kids? Do you want to be financially free in the digital age? And the people who just want more dollars, and like Tampa is for those who haven't been, it's a banker heavy city. All of downtown are just banks. So everyone I talk to are wealth managers, real estate people, or retirees. So I already have, $4 million in my Fidelity account, and if I have to take it out, I'm going to have to, and I'm like, all right, well, so there's Unchained Capital that has the collaborative custody and the inheritance planning and all of that. There's River, the financial that does the services. So most people get it. Like if they are like doing stocks already, they know they don't have the stock. They know they just have IOUs. So whenever they're like, oh yeah, I grabbed some of BlackRock's Bitcoin. And I was like, well, that's not real Bitcoin. They're like, yeah, but I don't want to deal with it. I want me to hold my own money. Like that's why I have a financial advisor. So I don't, and I deal with plebs mostly, honestly, the people that come in, the people are worried about getting scammed on something like that or other. So I'm not really in the sphere of the people who work in, the ETFs and stuff like that. But the mindset of our grandparents haven't had sound money. No one who is alive has a parent that had money before the Federal Reserve. So we are so used to not holding our own keys to anything. People like love convenience. They love it. Everything's on my phone. I have my card. I don't have to carry my wallet anymore. People don't even carry cash anymore. So the issue that we are faced with is changing people's minds. And that is a slow, methodical process that's taken generations to get people to the point now where they are almost allergic to responsibility. So it's mostly dispelling the fear of, well, I don't want to lose 10,000 Bitcoin. I'm like, well, one, you're not getting 2,000 Bitcoin. I don't know who you. And then explain to them the new tools that are available now, like seed phrases didn't exist when everyone was losing that Bitcoin. That's why people were losing 10,000 Bitcoin or 500 Bitcoin. And also, it was like 50 cents a coin, $1 a coin. They weren't valuing it like they are now. So a lot of it is updating their understanding of the situation. People aren't just losing Bitcoin willy-nilly. Updating that, and then also just finding a way and then showing them how easy it is. Like, you've used Venmo before. you can use Bitcoin. You just don't even have to download an app. You just go to mutinywallet.com, boop, there you go. Scan the QR code. Now you have Bitcoin. So a lot of it is updating to the current mindset of what is possible in Bitcoin, what are the limitations of it, what are the storage issues, and then showing them how it's not this scary, ethereal thing. It's as easy as a QR code on your phone.
So it sounds like first world problems to me.
Yes.
Monika, you grew up in Colombia. You've told me about some of the violence and the danger you experienced growing up. And when I've worked with people from South America, they immediately grok Bitcoin. They immediately see the value. So what is it about growing up in that kind of environment where you're more likely to embrace the sovereignty of Bitcoin?
Sorry. Hello? Yeah, better. So when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, with all like pew was happening everywhere, drugs, it was really, really bad. And so I grew up with like a state of fear, like something's going to happen to me. So you learn to value your life like this, because I actually developed like very deep skills about my body, like my senses, my instincts and everything, because I still to the day, I don't, even in New York, I would never walk without being aware of something like that. So in South America, for instance, I do a lot of teaching. I teach mi primer Bitcoin, my first Bitcoin, to all my female friends. I want them to be free from their husband's money. And they're like, whoa, we can do this? And I said, and you don't have to ask permission. It's okay. So I've been doing this. It's been going very well. So now they're sending me the nephews and the nieces. So I'm starting, 13, 12. And so I proposed to Saif the other day. I said, why don't we make the book of Austrian economics for children? If he's not going to do it, I'm going to do it, because I think that we can tell stories. If I've been telling stories to children, and especially Colombian, I'm right now devoted to my country, because right now we have a horrible, horrible government that is very socialist, and people are starting to be very afraid. So now everybody's paying attention to Bitcoin. Everybody right now is like, because he's talking about expropriating land, and people are like, now they see it. When you're under the disco ball, you don't care. But when you're under like a lot of fire, you pay attention. So I'm actually using the fact that things are a little bit fucked up in Colombia to just tell people, not with fear, but inspiration and education. Just letting them know that there are ways to understand what freedom is, financial freedom, but also all the things that Bitcoin represents, because it's another way of life. And I wanted to say a little bit about perspective. Only when you move from where you are comfortable, that's when you understand that there's something probably new that you didn't even know that existed. And that's what happened to me. Like, hadn't I just like study Bitcoin, I don't know what I would be right now. Probably doing something crazy, but not sitting here saying hi to you.
All right. So socialism, capitalism, praxeology. And Robert, I'm going to direct this to you to start. These are all these ideas that have organized different cultures across humanity. In my mind, Bitcoin seems to be organizing a new culture. From the food we eat to the things we talk about, the things we care about, how we vote. And why is this happening? What is it about this time chain, this structure, that is reorganizing this human belief structure or creating a new one?
It's a good question. People would joke that Bitcoin is a cult, but every culture starts out as a cult, actually. It's right there in the word. So people have been organizing themselves under different symbolic canopies or ideologies or religions or political ideologies, like whatever you want to call it. We've been organizing ourselves under common principles for a long time. This is another one of those defining features of being human, the fact that, well, we can organize 330 million people under the flag of the United States, for instance. No animal can do that. And when you look at those isms that you asked about, I like Hoppe's definitions the most, and it's all through the lens of property rights, because you get into these weird arguments where people want to say, oh, we need socialism, or we need communism, or we need fascism. But then you'll find the people arguing with one another all have different definitions for each of those terms, right? People think that socialism is something like, oh, we all just, from each according to their ability to each according to their need type of thing, that we can all just dispense with all this free market capitalist activity and just love one another. And unfortunately, that doesn't work at scale, right? Like, sure, that works in your household. In your household, you can be a full-blown communist, right? You probably don't charge your kids for breakfast. But at scale, we need to actually resolve conflicts over scarce resources in a way that's rational. And that is what capitalism is ultimately all about. So Hoppe, I'll start with Marx, actually. So Marx defined communism, right? If you could sum it up in one sentence, what is it? The abolition of private property. Okay, so that's one end of the spectrum. Hoppe defines capitalism as respect for private property and consensual transfers of private property via contract. So in the world of capitalism, individuals own everything. In the world of communism, individuals own nothing. The state owns everything. And the gradient between those two extremes is socialism, which Hoppe defined as an institutionalized policy of aggression against private property. So systematic, institutionalized, justified stealing, basically. And so those different political ideologies have different cultures that manifest around them. I think you'd be hard-pressed to argue that capitalistic societies have not, they've been the best for humans, right? We've created the most wealth. They've tended to be the most moral. We've had the most human flourishing. Where taxes have been low and predictable and laws have been stable, we've had the most flourishing, right? Again, back to the idea of games, it's the stability of rules unlocks players to just play the game, right? And versus fighting over the rule-making mechanism itself. And so Bitcoin, is it just enabling this process, giving people, again, inviolable private property, is helping us cultivate this new culture, I guess, of seeing through bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned, we're eating different.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, people figured out fiat food's a bad idea. You shouldn't be eating seed oils and other metabolic sludge that will destroy your entire system. You probably shouldn't be going into the medical industrial complex for your health, right? They'll pump you full of experimental chemicals and put you on, all these things to maximize the revenue and minimize your health, right? It's sick care, not healthcare, fiat healthcare. And so Bitcoin culture becomes like this counterculture in a way that's counter to everything that is fiat, but it's aiming to envelop all of global culture at some point, right? Because really what we're advocating for is the individual respect for individuals' life, liberty, and property. And so on top of that becomes pure capitalism, something like that. I know that term has been bastardized and destroyed, and people look out on this world and they call it late stage capitalism, which is total bullshit, right? This is late stage central banking, which is monetary communism. Marx himself defined this in the manifesto of the Communist Party. It's measure number 5, you needed a central bank. So hopefully Bitcoin gets us to individualism, and that would explain some of the cultural shifts as well.
So when I think about this, and Monika, you and I talked about this a little bit outside, we have a base layer right now that's based on lies, confiscation, distrust. It's a fraudulent base layer, the fiat system. And so if you wanted to impart value into this corrupt system on the layers above it, you need to be more corrupt to really extract enough value to bring it back into that base layer. Now we have a trusted, rational base layer that eliminates corruption. The only way to play the game is to be a legitimate actor. How does that change these higher levels, right? And how do we extract value in the future to bring it back to the base layer?
Well, it's very important to understand what the principles are. And if you have principles in your life, that's going to give you the base. So if you go to the origin of the word principle, that's the beginning. So if you start from the beginning and you understand what your principles are, you probably know where is your top. You'll probably know where you're going to bend or where you're going to, what your price is, because everything has a price. So you're going to build your life based on that. Now, I'm a very individualistic person, I'm an artist, so it's all about me. But at the very end, this all meanness is because my scope is to be individuated, to be able to transcend my reality in a way that I can use it to serve humanity. And so I serve by becoming aware of those principles and living them every day, all the time. Because that's why when I was in New York and I really understood what was going on with the art market, which is like a big money laundering. It's like you don't understand how bad it is. And you were being used, and some people just don't care. They say, I want fame, I want likes, or whatever it is at the moment, whether it's fame or a museum show or being part of a collection or going to the next biennial. Then you have to understand, how do you want to have that relationship to your own principles? Because at the very end of the day, you have a conscience. Some people never use it, but you do have that, and that's what's going to be your relationship to yourself and with what you want to leave behind, your legacy. So I'm just going to say something here that just came to my mind. It's very funny. It's not funny, but it's true. I was commissioned by the Vatican to do a piece for the Venice Biennale. And I grew up as a Catholic, but I don't practice Catholicism because not a single nun was able to tell me how come my father was in heaven, day after he was dead. So I always been very spiritual, but not religious. And so I had to deal with the Vatican as a commissioner, as a business. And they were hell. And I don't even know why they hired me because, I told the curator, you know me. Why you want me? And they said, because we need somebody from South America. So I was okay, but are you sure? Because, I'm going to make a piece. They actually wanted me to do something I've done before. And I said, no, this is a commission. It was a very good money. It was very good opportunity. As they say, it was very good exposure. And I said, well, I'm going to do it. Some artists were like, why are you going to do that? And I said, because I'm giving the time and the money to create something that is going to create a dialogue. So my whole thing was, and this was funny because I made a piece about, I was given the Gospel of John, which is a very beautiful gospel. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was with the Word. So I speak Greek because I lived in Greece, and that gospel is in Greek. So when you read the Greek, the word logos, it's not word. It is translated as word, but it means more than that. So my idea for the project was propose something that is beyond the word. So actually I created a piece that is after meta, the word, and I want to create an experience where the viewer will find his own experience about what the word of God is, because God is represented in so many different ways. It could be a sunset, it could be holding your mother's hand before she dies, it could be many things. Sorry, my mom died 6 months ago and I just thought of her, so she's here with me. So when I did that piece, I decided to defy the Catholic Church, and I decided to use as a reference Malevich, one of the most important artists in abstract art, but he ended up staying in Russia, so he became a communist, but by default. So the curator and the cardinal and everything was like, you cannot use Malevich. And I said, why not? Because he's a communist. And I said, oh, then I'm going to use him, something like that. So I had to go beyond my limits to express myself. And it was a fight, but I did it. So I think that at the very end, you have to know what your principles are and go all the way. Otherwise, they own you and you're dead and you're not free.
So everything that is being said down the line here has all been about individualism, and Bitcoin seems to have hacked into the individual through number go up, through creating abundance and wealth, like those selfish, like it's gamifying our selfish desires. but it seems, at least to get into the game, right? If it is a game, if this game is attracting us for maybe fiat reasons initially, but then leading us down this path or this evolution where we start to consider the higher order values, start to lead us to think of ourselves as sovereign individuals as opposed to just an individual trying to collect more coins. This kind of gamification of individual sovereignty with what we believe is going to be a positive outcome, how is that happening in real time? So how is that being delivered to you in real time?
For me, it's like I have to be authentic and I have to make sense to me. And whatever I'm going to do and serve, however I serve, if I'm doing it with the highest principles, I can actually contribute. And the word contribution comes from tribe. Contribute. I am giving something to the tribe. I'm not controlling the tribe. I'm not controlling the resources. I am, and my resources, for instance, what I want to contribute is with education. And education is about asking questions to other people that they have never had, or making them think in different ways, serving as a I don't know, as an inspiration for that. Like, hey, you can ask questions. I always say this to children, you can ask me anything. And they always go, blah, 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 and I go, blah, 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 and and so don't give me if you want your child to go to college, don't get them near me, because they're not going to go to college. I have really done a very good job. And everybody who's not in college right now is thanking me, because I want them to. I didn't go to college, by the way. I'm self-taught. And so I can prove that. So, you got to be, how to say this, is like you have to show up, but not show off. That's what I'm about.
So Wesley, you run a tribe up in Tampa. All right. You've got a bunch of people that you're coordinating and helping. And Bitcoin kind of acts like this, right? You might get in for whatever selfish reason you get in for, but the people that spend enough time in it tend to become people that want to spread the message, right? This is the cult. This is the Bitcoiner who, like, my nickname is the preacher because I never shut up about Bitcoin. So what's happening with your tribe, and what happened in you where you turned from me to us?
Yes. So, hello.
I think you got
Hello?
it.
There we go. Maybe.
No. Switch, Monika. All right, there you go.
So what happened for me is I just joined the meetup one day in January of 21. And after about a year of doing more meetups, and I started helping with the meetup, it got to the point where it was the same group of guys, the same bar, complaining about the same things. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? I'm sick of spending my Thursdays with the same group of guys. Like I was 24 at the time. I'm like this. I'm gonna become a loser if I just keep doing this. So that was when we decided to actually incorporate, because it was getting to a point where, like, this is just it is a group of individuals, and very short sidebar. The individualism is a strength and weakness, because if you are alone, you are easy to just pluck off and discard. So I don't think that, and Bitcoiners love to be individualistic, but we do all need to come together, like we are coming together now. And so, thanks, Ben. And so that was kind of the realization that I had come to, is that we need to organize. An organized minority always beats a disorganized majority. Populism does not work, has not worked. You get the French Revolution with the populist revolution, not the American Revolution. If people want a clean change, you need to have a group of people that you are with and know personally, face to face. We mentioned earlier about being algorithmically screened if you're using something else. The face-to-face interactions that the Bitcoin meetups provide are the most important things we've had since the Palais Royal in Paris. So I'm so glad you called it a tribe and not a cult. My sister keeps saying I'm starting a cult, and I'm really trying not to. But we decided we've come together, and like you said, we've showed up, and we're setting an example. Like I don't preach anymore, because there is so little ROI to that. We have weekly meetups, provide a consistent which is important, a consistent space and opportunity, just like Bitcoin Brunch does here in Miami every Sunday at Naomi's 10 to 3. If you're in Miami, go to that. A consistent focal point for people to come and gather. And so we use Bitcoin as that. I'm not organizing for Bitcoin. I'm using Bitcoin to organize. We are building a community that as things continue to degrade, you know the person down the street from you. You know somebody who you can get your pipes repaired from. You know a rancher that can get you good quality beef. You know, through the things like we have the Florida Beef Initiative, which is a chapter of the Beef Initiative. So if you ever want to spend Bitcoin, buy beef from a farmer. We are building community because if we don't, it's being degraded. I mean, the church used to be a very strong community builder. You had families that would live in the same neighborhood, I mean, up until probably my generation. You know, I'm only 27. My whole family grew up in Bradenton, Florida, and they were all together, and then everyone slowly dissipated. You don't have, you know, now like the LATAM communities, you have the grandparents down to the grandkids all live in the same house. And while it's chaotic, that's a community. And if something happens to somebody in that community takes care of them. So if we're all individuals that are, you know, we're pure capitalists, and if you're not working hard enough, you're not making money, and you're on your own, you need that community to lift you up, and you all lift to get each other up. And so I'm doing this as a very selfish reason. I want to be able to live on Bitcoin. I want to be able to spend Bitcoin in my area. I want to not have to I don't want a bank account. It's a liability. I don't keep any more money in the bank than I'm willing to lose at this point.
Yes.
Which if you ever want to shock a normie, say that.
Can we get a t-shirt?
Yeah. Yeah, feel free to take the t-shirt. Just donate to BitcoinBay. So I'm not sure if that really answered your question.
No, it did. I thought it was wonderful. Thank you. We only have a few more minutes, so I'm gonna try and wrap this together because you brought up religion, and I often see Bitcoin spoken about in religious terms. I also see people taking whatever their spiritual beliefs are and tying Bitcoin into it. We're seeing it in the Christian community. We're seeing it in the Muslim community. You name it. Robert, I believe you've got a religious background, some strong religious beliefs. How does Bitcoin fit into that for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I grew up in Tennessee, and one side of my family was fairly religious. They went to church frequently, and that was my aunt and my uncle, who we spent a lot of time with. And then in my household, we did not go as much. I started reading a lot when I was young. And so I basically got to the point where I was a rational atheist in my early teens. So probably 13, 14 years old. I just thought it was all fairy tales, basically. Good fairy tales, feels good to go to church, nice excuse to spend time together, good backbone for the community. But I didn't think there was any truth to it. It was through getting into Bitcoin that got me introduced to Jordan Peterson's work and his book, Maps of Meaning, and his lecture series, The Psychological Significance of the Bible, that made me look at religion and mythology with fresh eyes. And I've come to see it as something much more serious. It's hard to talk about in just a few words. We have entire series on this. I was recording a series this morning on Jordan's Maps of Meaning book. We have, probably 10 episodes in that series. And like I said, I just recorded another one today. So how do I view it? I mean, look, Peterson actually has a great answer to this when people ask him, does he believe in God? He says, no, but I act as if he exists. And so for me, I actually don't care what your propositional beliefs are. Like, you can believe in whatever it is you please, so long as you act properly. And for me, proper human action is, I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me say this, but I don't know what else to say. It's just life, liberty, property. It's really that simple. Life, liberty, property, leave people alone. Everyone just mind their own business. All human action and interaction should be consensual, non-coercion. All these moral intuitions we have about everyday interaction, right? If you want to date someone, if you're into them, you have a romantic interest, you don't coerce that person into liking you, right? You consensually engage them. There's a back and forth. You try to win their heart. You don't go bludgeon them over the head until they date you, right? Why do we do that in our economic relationships? Why are we fighting wars with one another? Why aren't we engaging in long-term trading relationships that actually are win-win situations for both sides? It's tricky. And I guess this has been the aim of religion, and I want to be careful people also get very concerned. I would differentiate my language between religion and organized religion. Obviously, organized religion, once you institutionalize a thing, you introduce the human element, and we always fuck it up somehow. But there's some purity in religion, right? If you study the word and you have a one-on-one relationship with the Bible or with the Quran or with whatever your book is or your religion is, there is ancient wisdom there, and it's useful for implementing into your life. And I'll just leave it at that.
That's great. Monika?
Thank you. So
you've kind of come to a similar decision from a different path.
yeah.
Maybe you can explain your path and where this relates with
Well, I
Bitcoin.
said a little bit before that. I mean, I grew up in a family with my grandmother. I think she's in heaven because she really truly believed she was going to go to heaven. My mom, she just left us at the church, and she says, "Don't tell anybody, but you should really listen to the sermon and then come to and tell my mother what is it about." So she never went to church, but she became more religious at the end. But after my father died, I was like, no, this is not going to happen. So I started exploring different kind of philosophies. And when I lived in New York for 30 years, almost 27 years, I say that New York shaped me in so many ways. And one of the things that it shaped me was spiritually. I was able to get educated and have a deep relationship with different kind of practices. So my core practice is Taoism. So I became a martial art, with Tai Chi, and I studied 12 years with a master. And you study the whole Taoist cosmology, which is very beautiful. It has a lot of stories, mythology, but you also practice the art of taking care of yourself because you want to live a long life. So you learn about your own internal medicine, energy. It's very beautiful. So I study that. I then one day said, and I became a Buddhist. I meditate every day for 30 years, never miss a day. It's very important for me. But then I became very curious about the Western way of thinking. So I was curious about, it was the time where Kabbalah was like a big thing, like Madonna was going there. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go there and see. And I hated the whole Kabbalah place because it was very, office-like. So I didn't like the lightings or whatever. So I did something. I would go over there and close my eyes and listen to them. Would not look, so I would not get distracted who was speaking. And when they were saying, it was not very different from the Bible. It was not different. It was just like they were speaking about the word of God in their own way. So I did study 5 years until all these places, they want to recruit you because at the very end, they want you to be paying money. So I have a thing that I know exactly when to leave. So I do Houdini, boom, I disappear. So I always go for the Dharma, for the teaching, and then I never stay to just place respect. So I have a very broad way of connecting to my spirit, but spirit is the most important thing in my day. So I wake up and I always connect to my spirit, connect to my mom or my dad or somebody bigger, a higher self. And I always ask the day to give me grace. Just give me grace. Give me the best of me today so I can be good. I can find the difference between what is correct or not. So I am very spiritual, but I'm zero religious, zero.
Wesley, unless you have something to add, I wanted to open up for questions from the audience.
I'm a Christian, I pray, and it's really changed my life. I don't have nearly the background or anything like that. I'm not a very good one.
All right, guys, here's your opportunity. These three wonderful guests up here. Any questions for them? Anything I might have missed that you're dying to know? This gentleman back here.
So for Robert, I saw that you recently became a Miami resident. Are there any anything coming up to close out the year with the What is Money Studio, an opportunity for the larger community to see what you got going on, or how is that set up? And do you plan to engage with Miami's Bitcoin community?
Thank you for asking. Yes, so I did become a Miami resident as of November last year. Yeah, thank you. Um, you were talking about the meetups, and yeah, I think Bitcoin, again, obviously spend a lot of time talking, philosophizing on the show, and there's some use to that. Hopefully, I find some value in it. I think other people do as well. But you do get to this point where the words get a bit tiresome and you're ready for a little bit more action, a little bit more kinetic activity, I guess. So we're looking to start doing some retreats, actually. So we're going to put together, sorry, ladies, it's going to be men's groups initially. My audience is 93% men.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I have much to give the women in way of life decisions or guidance, let's say. But hopefully, with the men, we can put our heads together and figure out some good ways to start creating some real community, getting people in touch with themselves, right? In touch with responsibility, traditional masculinity, just how to lead a proper life in the world, being a respectful, competent adult, hopefully living on a sound money standard. I'm also starting to work with this group. They're called the Farm at Okefenokee. And so they have a regenerative agriculture co-op at the Florida-Georgia line, which is about 6 hours north of here. And they're basically building a citadel. They've already constructed 25 custom cabins. They have plans to construct 475 more. I bought a plot there. I'm going to build a cabin. They have their own food, their own electricity. They're building like their own church, their own school, their own shooting range. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So that's kind of like my backup, bug out plan, basically. And I'm hoping to invite more people into that community and figure that piece out. And yeah, I'm always listening to market feedback. Like, if there are things you guys would like to see done, if it's, these type of events or public lectures or meetups, I'm really all ears. But I'm an introvert naturally, so it doesn't come natural to me at all to want to do these things. But I see the value in really getting after the community building. So I admire what you're doing, and I hope to do more of that myself and come out of my introverted shell and go after it. So yes, thank you for asking.
Wonderful. Other questions? Yeah.
Hi, Monika. I'm curious, what art piece did you produce for the Vatican?
Okay, so I made a piece. I made a piece that was called Archetypes because I really like the word. It's the beginning. Arche is the beginning, and typus is like form. So it's a primal form that all humans are connected to unconsciously. So I wanted to work a little with that, but I also do a lot of installations that are moving images. So I created these panels. It was like a labyrinth that you go in, and it's very colorful. My work is extremely colorful. So I created these panels that had colors, and then they had these TVs, very big TVs, where there was some images that I took from Malevich. But I combined, you have to see it, with landscape, and then I had the words in Greek projected on glass. So it had, the best part of the piece for me was something that people could not see, but could listen. So I had this very direct sound pieces that they will come from nowhere, but they were reciting the verses of John. But I had given them to 6 people in 6 different languages that I can speak, so they could just recite the words, like in a way like you go to the shop and say, I want 2 eggs, 1 milk, something like that. So I completely distorted the words of the gospel and put them in there. And I wanted people to feel like they're listening to the word of God, but you don't understand it. Because a lot of people recite things in the Bible, they don't even know what it means. So that was my whole thing. It's like, and I made other pieces that were like that you couldn't read. So I'm making the impossible possible, like asking questions. You recite the Bible. Do you actually understand the story behind? It's an allegory. It goes beyond just like, it's not literal. So that's what I did, yeah.
Anybody else?
No plans to. But again, I'm all ears, open to suggestions.
All right, last call. All right, guys. How about a round of applause for these wonderful panelists?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, fantastic panel and a great way to wrap up the day.